Alkanaz's perspective. The bright man sits on the couch, his arms wrapped around the head of the brightest organic being I've ever encountered. She is so bright that I'm forced to ask, Victor, would you mind if I put on some eye protection? Fluffy is burning my retina a little to look at. Oh, course. She does run quite hot. Thank you. I smiled before extracting a pair of heavily tinted lenses and putting them on, reducing the dazzling pair to a tolerable dimness. Victor looked slightly confused before asking, Those tinted in the IR spectrum? They look clear in mine. I chuckle. I assure you they are, however they might look. He shrugs and returns his hands to nervously working for the fur at the bottom of his pet's chin. His arms don't quite make it all the way around her enormous head. She seems to be fully appreciating the level of attention she's receiving. It's difficult to say whether she understands the implication that her human is not doing well right now. Rather than directly tackle the elephant in the room, I decide to start with something he'll probably be much more comfortable talking about. So, Victor, I take it from the new jewelry that Toon gave a favorable response, indicating the jeweled metal band on the digit 4 of his left hand. He smiles a smile that does not touch his eyes as he raises the hand to look at the ring, transferring his right hand to the space between his pet's ears. Yeah, she did, he says contentedly. We put in a request for leave for after the current mission's over. She wants to get married on Nova Ferriscandia, and I agree since she's got a lot more people to invite from there than I have from Earth. I don't suppose T'Quola'd refuse it, but we might need to do a bit of negotiating about when. I also feel a bit bad about everyone I know from Earth who'll get the choice between spending weeks trekking out to a planet on the edge of Terran space and not coming. Treg, Lloyd and Chelsea, Gian and Ezra, Aunt Tamsin and Uncle Rex. Maya will probably just rent a droid. I'm going to try to make it clear to him that I won't be offended if they tell me it's too far to come, and we can set things up for him to view it remotely. You're generally happy with it all? Extremely, he says with conviction. Nevertheless, I sense a but there, Victor. I smile kindly. He sighs. Yeah, just after what happened. I don't know. Everything feels a bit precarious. And here's that elephant. Would you like to talk about what happened, Victor? Another sigh. I guess I should. Only if you want to. You set the agenda, Victor, I say, kindly but firmly. He pauses for a moment, running his right hand from Fluffy's head between both her sets of shoulder blades a few times, while he considers. I want to, he finally decides. How much do you know already? I know you, Toon, Miss Hunter, Miss Aran, and Massa Wan were all attacked and hospitalized. Other than that, not much, I answer, honestly. Emiko and Mudaliar were taking a walk over to the Osiol and Granatian embassies to meet two of our new experts. I had a bad gut feeling for reasons I can't quite explain, so I suggested taking a capsule. They convinced me I was being silly, but just in case, I asked Toon and Samus to go along with me, Fran and Svatika, Mudaliar's bodyguard. Zon, Barn and Pereira were nearby as well and volunteered to come too. Then, when we were passing through a relatively deserted area of the city, that, in hindsight, might have been what was giving me the misgivings about the walk, we were attacked. He was a cyborg, stronger than Fran, faster than Toon, more versatile than Samus, and able to fight Shifu to the point of collapse, even if he did get his arm ripped off for the trouble. He had these plasma daggers that, after he threw, he could summon back to his hands. That kind of tech ain't really feasible for biologicals to use that way. I stuck him in the ground, which limited the harm they did to burning off some of Fran's hair, and scorching her scalp, but he didn't need them. With just his body, he was able to break Toon's arm, crack Fran's skull, crush Samus's ribs under Fran's collapsed weight, completely smash up my face, and cut Shifu up so bad he lost consciousness. He stops here, so I contribute. That sounds like an extremely dangerous individual. Do you know what he wanted? Well, he said he wanted to collect the Revankiss bounty on Emiko and Mudaliar. I've told you about them before. You have. You don't think he was honest about that? No, he definitely did want to, but from how he acted, it sort of seemed like he wanted a good fight more than anything else. Like he came down ahead of us when, if he'd come down on top of us or behind us, he might have been able to kill him before we'd been able to do anything to stop him. Seemed like he took a sort of sadistic thrill from the drama and the showmanship of it all. Ran off when Shifu took his arm though, so he clearly only likes to fight when he's winning. What happened afterward, after one had driven him off? I asked. Well, bearing in mind I was massively concussed, in agonizing pain, and slipping in and out of consciousness for that bit, I heard Steve came and grabbed the arm like a snake, keeping it from getting up to any mischief. Glark, Wham Bam, and Dr. Aglert arrived. She stabilized me, after giving me a mini heart attack from waking up to find her straddling my chest. Glark got caught trying to nick the daggers as payback for having his drone shot down with a pebble when he tried to follow the guy with it. Had to have evidence, crime scene integrity and chain of command explained to him. We got taken to a hospital where me, Samus, Fran and Shifu all got regen. Toon just has to heal naturally since her species are so rare that the nearest regen pod for her is on Ferroscandia, and by the time we make it back there, she'd have healed on her own anyway. Sucks for her that she'll have her dominant arm in a sling for the next few weeks though. I had to have my teeth cloned back separately because the human body can't regenerate those on its own, even in a tube. Fran had to get her head shaved after the amount of her hair that had burned off. She seems a bit miserable about that, but all in all, nothing was as bad as it could have been. I nod sympathetically and ask, and what about the attacker? Was he found? Victor twists his mouth and shakes his head. We got a name off the arm. A lot of it had been replaced over the years, but there was still enough of the original left to pull up a service record. I suppose it ain't impossible that the arm got stolen, but the guy it traces to definitely lines up with the guy we fought. What was the name? I ask. Jackson Scout Stetter, member of a special unit of the UTC Marines called the Phoenix Brigade. I frown. I'm afraid I've not heard of it. He gives a joyless smile. Neither had I, and that's kind of the point. They were a covert ops group that lasted a little past halfway through the war. There were a few others like it, but apparently they all got shut at about the same time. Do you know why? He purses his lips, causing his lower face to light up from the tensing of the surrounding muscles. Because the theory behind them was to take folk who'd lost everything to the war, including their bodily integrity, and offer them a chance to get cybernetics fast-tracked in exchange for allowing themselves to be turned into living weapons. Problem was, people like that ain't exactly the most measured and stable of individuals. One too many war crimes later and the whole initiative was seen for the ethical fucking quagmire it was and scrapped. One of those war crimes were done by our pal Jackson. He blew up an entire GU fleet after he'd already been offered a surrender. Served 15 years in the Supermax before being broken out by what, in hindsight, were probably the early Revankists. Since then, he's had his entire torso and skull replaced. Must have cost a fortune too. Durastil's a bit out of most folks' price range, but cybernetics on top of that? You're talking in the millions of credits. I'm sorry, Victor, I say, confused. Am I missing some significance to how much it must have cost for him to undergo this cyberneticization? He nods grimly. Means whoever these Revankists are, they've got funding. Powerful folk with cash to splurge on taking deadly diehards and making them deadlier. Also got expertise, or underworld connections at least. That body would have broken a dozen different laws on any Terran world. So they've either got a cyberneticist on payroll, or know how to find one who doesn't ask questions.
I see. You've come to understand that the scope of this organization is grander than you realized.
Exactly, he sighs. And we all just painted a massive target on our backs by seeing off what I really hope is one of their heaviest hitters.
Didn't you already have a target on your backs? He told you Miyazaki had a bounty on her head, I query.
His mouth tightens as he nods. Yeah, but hunting a bounty is just business to guys like that. Now he'll have a grudge. We were nothing to him. He tossed us around like toys. He's gonna be fucking stewing about losing an arm he's had since the war on that job. It ain't gonna be about the money no more. It ain't gonna be about the thrill of the fight. He'll be coming after us for revenge. He'll see himself being in need of his honor restored. Not to mention his backers. They're not gonna like the fact that their top assassin got embarrassed like that.
I see, I nod. Curling her head up his trunk, with her long, powerful, bright body, Victor's pet protrudes a rounded tongue from between sharp, predatory teeth that give me some idea of how herbivorous and omnivorous species must feel when they see mine, and licks her master's face. He winces from apparent discomfort, but nonetheless smiles and pats her side appreciatively. It seems I wasn't giving her enough credit before. Apparently she is more than aware of how her human is doing. Victor, may I ask, is there anything you think you could have done better?
He gives a mirthless smile and answers. You mean, apart from being a better fighter?
I nod. I mean, if I offered you the chance to start that encounter again, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
He thinks for a moment before answering. I think I swapped Tomb for Svatika. I'd have him in the holding off party, and send her back with the principals.
And why didn't you instruct such the first time? I probe.
Well, he considers, idly working his right hand through his pet's burning hot fur. A few reasons, I guess. I didn't know the guy's capabilities and thought that a more balanced mix of fighting styles gave us a better chance of subduing him. Toon ain't strong, but she's so fast it ain't real. Thing was, the guy was faster. She only got hurt. Svatika might have been enough muscle to keep him contained until Shifu showed up. I think, also, Svatika don't really know anything about me. He's not a colleague and definitely not a subordinate. I worried that if I said, Svatika, you're staying here while your principal runs away, he might have just said, no I ain't. Might have been suspicious that I was in on it. Might have thought that this was a decoy to keep him occupied and get him separated from his charge while the real assassin waited round the corner. I suppose there's also the fact that I didn't know there wasn't another assassin round the corner either. I still don't, actually. I know that that group didn't get attacked, but maybe that's just because they were counting on more of us being occupied with Mr. Stetter.
So, given the information you had, how would you think you handled the situation?
He frowns. I see what you're driving at, but it don't make me feel any better. I did the best I could and still ended up with a smashed-in face, a concussed brain, and 4 injured friends, and needed to be rescued by my teacher.
I can see that, Victor. I just think it's important that you don't start thinking anything along the lines of blaming yourself for this. Please, remember that what happened was not your fault.
He smiles. Appreciate it, Doc. I do have a bit of a nasty habit of blaming myself like that.
I chuckle. I've observed